And here we are again. It's Livestream Tuesday, and I am live on the dot of 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Welcome to everyone attending the live stream. And in this live stream, I just want to show folks that underneath the radar, there's really good things happening. Like I was looking at something I look at all the time, which is the 52-week high and low list. And I'm starting to see a lot of our stocks starting to show up. And I'll put up the page that I look at, and I'll point to, okay, it's not like 100 stocks, but there is some of these stocks like Robinhood, PayPal, DocuSign. Then there's other stocks from our silver and our diamond and gold tier that are also starting to go up. So what's going on? Why, even though the general market being sort of just up and down, what's going on? Like, why are these stocks just suddenly like finding buyers? Finding buyers who are willing to bid prices up, even though the general mood and tone of the market is about like, oh, the election. Oh, well, yeah, the Fed cut rates, but long-term interest rates are up, and the housing market, like, yeah, there's all kinds of like problems there. And generally speaking, I mean, if you look at, I mean, certainly if you're following social media, I mean, it's chaos. I mean, we got Hurricane uh, Helene, yeah, I mean, destroying Western North Carolina, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, obviously parts of Florida and South Carolina. And now we've got a Category 4 hurricane headed straight for Tampa. We got an election going on. And all kinds of like just chaos bursting out there. I mean, uh housing market, like I said, either way, there's a lot going on. And through all of it, one of the things that's, I think, interesting, maybe amusing to others, is that like our stocks are entering bull markets. Like, yeah, I mean, they're just quietly through the side door, like, hi, yeah, I'm going up. I'm going to keep going up. And there's no big like explanation for why. There's no magical event, just buyers coming in, bidding prices higher. But before we get into all that, let's do all the legal stuff that I usually do, which is that this live stream and the content from ATG Digital is not investment or financial advice. It's presented to you as opinion, information, engagement, and entertainment. All ATG Digital content may contain errors, oversights, and mistakes. Understand that investment operations have significant risks and can lead to the loss of your principal. Investment operations is, I guess, supposed jargon for buying or selling a stock. Crypto options, loss of your principal means losing money. I, the owners, employees, contractors of ATG Digital, own, trade, and transact in securities and mention this video and all the content from ATG Digital. We do not take money from companies, their managements, crypto token sponsors, and all these people to recommend their stocks for better and for worse. Whatever you get, this live stream, I'm going to be doing a Facebook Live. Actually, I'm going to be doing a Facebook Live from Austin because I actually planned a trip. I'm going to see my friend Josh in Austin, and I guess I'll do it from his apartment. So there'll be a different background for the Facebook. So if you belong to the Facebook group, join in for that. But all of our stuff, yeah, I mean, this is all independent opinion. So gain, loss, win, lose, it's all independent, based on my experience, our understanding, our research, everything that we do. Here's all the free stuff that we put out. Substack, putting out daily. The Bald Man Speculating podcast. I always have intentions to do it, but between the regular workload at ATG Digital and all the other things, this YouTube, Facebook, etc., it's generally the last thing that I tend to give priority to. Social media, pretty active on X, and I'm actually going to show you some of the stuff that I wrote yesterday on Bitcoin on X. Dean is pretty active on Facebook. Instagram, yeah, is about as active as Ballman Speculating Podcast at the current time. And then if you are looking for subscriptions, atgdigital.media is our website where you can subscribe. Subscriptions begin at $9.99 per month, which is for our silver tier. Okay, so let's actually go to, what should we go to? I was going to start with X, but let's actually go to the 52-week high-low list, because there's good news here, folks. Look at this. All right, I'm going to sort this by market capitalization. And it's really, I mean, I would encourage anybody that is investing to always check what the 52-week high and low list is every day, because it's telling you what people are buying. It's telling you what people are bidding up within obviously a certain time frame of 52 weeks. And why does that matter? Well, I mean, it takes a little bit of conviction and some courage and some money to bid a stock higher, right? I mean, you're paying significantly more than what it, was trading for last week, last month, and obviously last year. So it's telling you there's some conviction buying going on. Obviously, you do have to, the idea is here, you want to buy in as the 52-week, as a stock begins to start hitting 52-week highs. So, I mean, my experience is that 52-week highs and lows are a series, meaning that once it starts to make a bunch, it will make it for some period of time. And then sort of the buying runs out. In other words, because the fuel runs out, valuation thresholds are hit, and then the same people that are buying may start to be like, okay, I don't really want to buy anymore. 12 times sales is kind of high. The estimates are not going up. Whatever the reason, people stop, and then they stop making 52-week highs, maybe for a month, maybe 3 months. It all is like a mixture of what's going on at the company, obviously what's going on in the markets in general. But the reason I'm putting this up is because look at this. I mean, this is sorted by market cap. So we got what? Palantir, PayPal. We sold Carvana. It's still making new highs. What else we got? Let's see. We got Robinhood. Who? I mean, I got ratioed so hard all through 2022 and 2023, telling me this was a fraud of a company. It was terrible, that, we should just throw it away. But Robinhood is making new highs. Why? Well, I believe it's because of, what I laid out last week, which is that we are in a transition market. We are in a market position where the vast majority of the money is huddled into a handful of stocks. Okay, a handful is an exaggeration. I'll say 20, 30 stocks dominated by the big tech stocks that everybody knows. And that's where everybody's huddled. Those stocks are, in my opinion, in my judgment, very overvalued, very overowned, and yet nobody will en masse sell it. So we're not going to have a crash. Why won't they sell it? Because they've gone up so much for the last 3 years. And just think what you do when you go to determine whether you're going to sell a stock or not. You go look at your portfolio, you go, oh, that one's up, it's doing well, leave that be. And you go, that one's down, maybe I should sell it. So psychologically, gains give us comfort, and so we stay. However, professional investors, they got to compete. They got to compete for the money of investors that are coming in. And so to the extent that they own these big tech stocks, I mean, the ones, Apple, Amazon, Google, Meta, all of these, they're going to peel some of these gains off, and they got to go search out new companies that have growth, that have the potential to generate big returns so that they can continue to get new investors in, collect fees, collect bonuses, etc. And that's what, in my judgment, is going on. And in the process of that, where are they going to go to? Well, they're going into smaller stocks. And as that happens, of course, who's in Robinhood? It's obviously not big institutions that use Robinhood. It's retail investors. It's folks like you and me. So yeah, as these folks come in, they're starting to bid like, yeah, all of these stocks higher, right? Look at all these stocks. You don't see any of the big stocks really there. Meta has been making new highs, but you really don't see Apple and Amazon and Google on this list. You don't see Nvidia on this list. These are all small companies, right? And that is going to bring regular investors in, and who are going to, the vast majority of regular investors are very short term. They buy, they sell, they're intolerant of any losses of any kind. Their time frames are probably generously a few days, depending on what their experience. If they have a gain, they might sit. But this is all terrible for investors, but it's great for Robinhood. Because all that trading, it means fees, right? Bid-ask prices, bid-ask spreads, Robinhood makes money. So that's one of the reasons, in my opinion, why you're seeing Robinhood on this list, which is that people are entering smaller companies, they're beginning to buy and sell, they're trading. And then there's a second element to what's going on, which is crypto. I put up this bread yesterday, and I just want to go through it because we are in the last days when you have a chance, in my judgment, in my opinion, to get Bitcoin below its old high of 69. There were like two or three highs really in the last cycle. The first one was about 65. Get the chart here. Long-term chart of Bitcoin. Let's do 10 years on a weekly basis. And I'll go back to my okay. So yeah, 64, about 65,000, which was the early 2021 high. Then there was a second high at 69. And then earlier this year, there is a high of almost 74,000. But whatever it is, in my opinion, in my judgment, the last days where that's true, right? And here's why. I have gone back and looked at every single halving cycle. So we've had 2012, 2016, 2020, and obviously we are in the 2024 halving cycle. In every single one of those halving cycles, 6 months approximately, not like to the dot, not to the day, but give or take a couple of weeks, at the 6-month point after the halving, in every previous cycle, Bitcoin is at, near, or beyond the old high. So we're at what, $62,400 today. I don't know which high necessarily, but it doesn't really matter. Whatever, 69, 60, 69, 73, whatever it is, it's coming, and it's coming very fast. And with that, you will definitely see money start to move into the crypto space, and that 52-week high list will suddenly start to show crypto miners, Coinbase, PayPal is a signal that fintechs like Square and others will all be entering the 52-week high low list. But let's go through what I mentioned, which is October 19th. So that's in about 11 days. That's the official 6-month anniversary of the fourth Bitcoin halving. And as I wrote here, every past halving has seen Bitcoin at, near, or beyond old highs at this marker. And that is not a coincidence. Um, I have talked on this channel about the mathematical side of Bitcoin, which is driven by the finite supply, 21 million, the algorithmic supply cut that happens every 210,000 blocks of 50%. In other words, there's like guaranteed and a form of like accelerating scarcity that is there's no other investment of any kind, not a stock, not a currency, not a bond. There's no other currency, nothing, not gold, not silver, not platinum, not palladium. There's not a single other investment that has this feature where the supply is guaranteed to be cut, not by 5%, not by 10%, but by 50%. New supply. Okay, not all supply. New supply is going to be cut. The new supply part is important because it is a feature of all investments, of all, of almost anything that as the price goes higher, whoever it is that is in charge of whatever it is, whether it be dollars, whether it be bonds, whether it be gold, well, I mean, human intervention is like, well, hey, this price is high. Let's go find more because, like, how can we benefit from this high price? So, for every single investment in some way, shape, or form, more supply shows up at high prices. But for Bitcoin, there is no human intervention. This is a hard-coded algorithm that cannot be interfered with. So it's hardcore, and the new supply gets cut 50%. 50%. I mean, that's big. That's just a big number. And that's why I think there is this recurring pattern, which is that, and I go through this here, like, why 6 months? Um, well, one of the things that, if you go through the halving cycle, is, for example, in every cycle, there's like sort of like certain events. Like I went back and looked. So, for example, the 2012 halving cycle was so early. There's so little coverage of that halving cycle that, truthfully, I can't find too much. But by the 2016 halving cycle, for example, Grayscale had created the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. It was private, it wasn't publicly traded, but it gave like smaller institutional investors, like small hedge funds, an ability to invest in Bitcoin that did not exist. By October of 2017, which was the first big attention getting like halving cycle where Bitcoin goes to almost $20,000, the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust is now publicly traded. I think it starts publicly trading in 2015. By 2017, they have $1 billion. They're managing $1 billion, right? And at that moment, when it was $1 billion, like Bitcoin was per coin was $5,600 approximately. In this halving cycle, what are the things that are a bit different? Well, one thing that happened is that the Bitcoin ETF got approved on January 10th. And now in hindsight, it's pretty clear that the folks at BlackRock and others clearly, were stocking up on Bitcoin into that event. And then obviously as demand came in, the demand was pretty steep right after the ETF was approved. It got bid up higher. So that pushed it to the new high in March of 73,400. Now, the reasons why there's this 6-month sort of like delay in the supply shock really hitting is that the Bitcoin miners suddenly, like, I mean, their business is to mine Bitcoin, and then they sell it to run their operations, right? I mean, and what happens if then when the halving happens? Well, their rewards get cut in half. So if you were making 50 million, you're now making 25 million. If you're making 100 million, you're now making 50 million. And how do they fund their operations? Because it's not like their costs get cut in half, only their revenue gets cut in half. So what do? Well, I mean, there's not many choices. One is to sell Bitcoin, right? Um, and then, as I put in this, well, the other thing is, like, if you didn't stock up on cash, didn't stock up on Bitcoin, you got to either go to investors with your hand out and say, please give me money so that, I can make it through this halving cycle. Else you'll merge with a larger, bigger, stronger miner, or else you'll shut business down and go away. And after, like, it's now been 6 months, like, where we hit the high in March, and it's now going to be 6 months. Yeah, I mean, it's 6 months, well past actually 6 months since it's 7 months since there. So you can't say that Bitcoin sentiment is like big. In other words, people are not loaded up with Bitcoin. I'm talking about short-term traders that, like, they're the ones that will push prices higher. They will take short positions, which they have to cover. That short covering is demand that, like, like suddenly has to be, like, taken care of, that will push prices higher. So everything is set up for this to unfold pretty much like previous halving cycles. In this cycle, we have two mega huge demand factors that didn't exist in the 2020 cycle. I mean, in the 2020 cycle, there weren't any big mega factors. I mean, many people were now, like, aware of Bitcoin, etc. But we didn't have. I mean, I'm talking, like, I think, like, MicroStrategy got going in sometime in, like, mid 2020, but I mean, they didn't really have a lot of money at that point in time invested into Bitcoin, and there was no ETF. You'd have to say in 2024, I mean, ETFs have what, $60 billion, and I mean, and now there's, like, a number of funds at BlackRock and others where it's being programmatically being bought because it's part of an overall asset allocation strategy. Then we've got MicroStrategy, where its stock, I mean, is almost at a 52-week high. Today I did my YouTube on MicroStrategy. Was it, like, I think a couple of weeks ago? I remember the folks be like, "Hey, Paul, are you aware it's down 3% this second?" I was like, "Listen, I'm talking about something that's going to unfold over 2 or 3 years, and the stock's already at a 52-week high." This is important because, like, MicroStrategy stock gets converted as it goes higher, and their convertible bonds, essentially get turned into shares, which then eliminates their debt. And then MicroStrategy goes back to the convertible bond market and says, "Yeah, give us more money, and we will buy more Bitcoin." So they're going to keep buying Bitcoin. So we got, like, these two huge buyers. I mean, MicroStrategy is now buying by I mean, they were first buying by, like, tens of millions, then the hundreds of millions. Now they're closing in on buying in the billions. So, I mean, yeah, this is a huge factor, yeah, right, in this halving cycle. In other words, you've got a supply shock that is already in place. The reason why we haven't had a big price increase is because of this, because you had the Bitcoin ETF come sort of, like, right before the halving, and then there's the regular stuff, which is, like, old sellers, seeing the old highs come back, and if you have regret, you'll be like, "Oh my God, it's back at 69 or 70. We missed it last time. Let's get out." And then there's the weak miners. So, I mean, all of that now is pretty much increasingly receding into the rear view mirror. And then we also know from behavioral finance research that in financial markets, high prices drive new demand. We know this. We're just like, what gets our attention is not facts, it's not evidence, it's not research, because those have no emotional impact. But price, I mean, tell me, like, I mean, all of you are listening. When Bitcoin hits $100,000, are your neighbors going to be like, have you seen that? Is your brother in law, your sister in law, your brother, your sister, your parents be like, hey, I heard you, didn't you tell me you have some Bitcoin? I saw that it's 100. Because, those big numbers, they get our attention. They get our attention. Which means that at $100,000, it's going to have the attention of the American public, but the global public. And in this cycle, right, there are ETFs in Europe, there are ETFs in the United States, there's ETFs in Canada. I think there's an ETF in Australia. I mean, a lot more people have access to Bitcoin than they ever did in any other previous cycle. So, as I put here, I mean, at $100,000, the demand for Bitcoin is going to be orders of magnitude greater than when it hit 10,000, which was in 2017. If you recall, in 2017, Bitcoin hits 10,000, and then in a month, it goes from 10 to nearly $20,000. In other words, that $10,000 price point, like, really got people excited and hot, right? They're like, I got to get some of this. I get some of this. So imagine at 100,000, and then I've done a lot of work on the price behavior, that's there. And essentially every 7 to 10 years, Bitcoin jumps one exponent in terms of the high, which means that we're going to taste something near 1 million. If my research is right, no guarantees, we won't stay there. But the research says that, we'll see something near it, might even go past it. I mean, imagine the envy, the regret, the greed that, like, just enters into buying Bitcoin as people look at 1 million and think that's not possible. And how could I have missed this? Like, that idiot Paul Mampilli said, it was going to happen. And, why didn't I listen to him? I'm going to go get some. And you multiply that by, I don't know, 5 million people, hundreds of asset management companies, 20 copycats to MicroStrategy. Yeah, I mean, I think this Bitcoin halving cycle is going to be pretty exciting and is going to be insane. It's going to be absolutely insane. And all of my work says, the peak comes about November, maybe December of next year. And yeah, it'll be somewhere near 1 million. So as I say here, well, the behavior model of finance says that price drives demand drives price until the buying fervor and mania is exhausted. When, social media is inundated with crypto bros and Bitcoin bros and Lambos and whatever crazy, stuff, this cycle brings, you'll know that's the top. somewhere near the top. When you see all that crazy stuff on social media, you'll know that's somewhere near the top, because there's inevitably, and we've seen this in every cycle, right? I mean, 2012, it was like an 82% crash. 2016 was another 80% crash. 2020 was a 77%. So some crash is coming, but it's still post the crash, it's still going to be significantly higher than where it is today. Obviously, my opinion, my judgment. So bottom line to this particular segment is that Bitcoin is in its last days, really, of seeing, 60, 70, and then very quickly, the last days of seeing 100. From there, it's a rocket run to something, that is definitely over 100,000 and potentially as high as 1 million. And then from there, there will be a crash, but that comes in 2026. Right? It doesn't come in 2025 because, first we got to go through the run. We got to go through the insanity. The supply shock hitting full, complete, mega, and everybody thinking like, okay, like this is the time. It's going to go from 1 million to 10 million, like right now. When you see that, well, the move is over. And now, for sure, at $1 million or whatever, or maybe it's 800. I don't know at this point. But whatever it is at this time, I mean, people are going to sell. And you know what? At HEG Digital, we'll tell people like, hey, our model says like, look, this could go higher, but like this is going to go lower at some point in time. But that's all for like 2026. Right now, as I said, like, it's time to get mega bullish on Bitcoin because of everything that I've laid out. All the work that I've done says the odds are good that I'm right. Obviously, there are no guarantees. There's no certainty. This is not financial advice, but I've said this before, which is that when I see good odds, well, I like to make the bet. And as I mentioned here, once Bitcoin starts to move, yeah, it will take Ethereum along with it. It will take Doge along with it. It will take Coinbase along with it. It will take Robinhood along with it. It will take PayPal. It will take Square. It will take an entire set of any set of stocks that are in any way, shape, or form connected to Bitcoin and crypto along with it. Obviously, MicroStrategy will rocket higher. So that's really, what I have for this live stream, which is that a bull market is sort of like entering through the side door for growth, innovation, opportunity stocks. The Bitcoin mega bull is imminent. The 6-month mark comes in about 11 days. From there, literally, I think like, I might set like a little stopwatch, be like, okay, and it will jump higher just by like, you'll just wake up one day and suddenly Bitcoin will be at 70 or 72 and you go, whoa, I wanted to get in, at here. And yeah. And the reason for that jump is that because the supply has been cut down so much. And then all the cheap, like available inventory has been consumed over these 6 months. And there ain't anybody available that's going to sell. And that's what's happened in every previous cycle. That's what has set up the run. And this one's going to be no different. All right. We've got a few comments here. Kevin says, good afternoon from Lakeland, Florida. Kevin, good to see you again. And good afternoon to you. I hope you will be safe and not in the path of, what is this one called? Milton, Hurricane Milton. Hopefully Hurricane Milton it's not going to affect you. Rashad asks, what do you think about nuclear energy? Is it time to invest? Thanks for all what you do. I have very my general view on cyclical industries like nuclear is that the time to invest is generally when nobody wants to invest in it. I've said this about semiconductors. I'll say this was true about housing in 2009. Right now, there is a lot of hype, in my opinion, about like how nuclear and AI, they go so well together. We need to go nuclear. The thing is that the reality of nuclear is this, which is that we have not put up a new nuclear plant in this country in, I don't know, Google it, 30 years, 40 years. So who is going to use the uranium? We need the plants to be put up for them to need fuel. We had a scenario when Russia invaded Ukraine where because we used to get some amount of our uranium either processed in Ukraine or Russia. I can't remember. I researched it at the time. And that was one of the reasons why, uranium stocks rocketed higher. But, they sort of like hit their 52-week highs like late last year, early this year. There's been no real sign. And it's possible that we're in a bull market for uranium stocks. I just can't tell. It's easier for me to pick them up at the bottom of the cycle when people hate it. And when you go online, there's a very easy way to check sentiment. You just go on X, you go on Reddit, you go and check. And generally, if people hate it, they don't own it. If people hate it, they bought it and they sold it, which is why they lost money, so they hate it. In other words, as new facts come in that say like this is the time, things are good, the pain of the loss is so great that they dismiss it. Those are my sort of like behavioral triggers for like when I like to go into clearly cyclical industries like mining, etc. I mean, mining, remember, I mean, for them to, let's say acquire permission, put up a uranium plant is probably like 7 years, and that might be low, might be 10 years. So, I mean, these are very long cycle investments, but obviously the prices of the stocks can move, on news, on a day-to-day basis, but the business changes on a very, very slow glacial pace. So anything that's totally based on news is a pump. At the bottom, yeah, I mean, companies look like crap. They're almost bankrupt. Nobody wants to give them money. I don't see that in uranium, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong. I mean, it's not like a foolproof way to invest, but that's my way by which, I was able to, invest in housing in 2009, semiconductors in 2016. Those are the signs of a low and a cyclical low that then triggers like this scarcity. Because at the low point, where companies have gone bankrupt, nobody wants to give money. Well, I mean, the supply of companies has dwindled. The supply of shares is accumulated by a tiny group of people because only they have conviction to buy at the low. I mean, the people who really know the industry. And the prices are so low that they can just grab like, huge amounts of shares. And because they understand what's going on, they're not willing to sell at like just marginal, like 5% higher, 10% higher. So those are the ingredients for me, like what I would look at for like uranium. I mean, I think like what's going on right now is like, to the extent there's action that's going on, there's no follow through in terms of like, okay, well, hey, we see, in the next 3 years, we're going to have like 17 nuclear power plants come online and there's no uranium for them. We're not there yet. I mean, I know China's putting up a bunch of nuclear plants, but Germany just shut down all their nuclear plants. So, I mean, this is a great story, but I've been burned sufficiently through cannabis, through obviously any of a number of stocks. And I don't need to be here. I mean, for me, there are much higher confidence trades that I can make that I'd prefer to be in. LMFG says, I think any blue chip crypto will be a hodl until 2030 for tremendous gains. Time will tell. I mean, look, we know for a fact, and maybe I'll be disproven in this cycle, but the mathematical nature of Bitcoin, the halving cycle is now we have 2012, 2016, 2020, and come 2026, we'll have 4 cycles worth of experience and evidence to show what happens between the finite supply, the mathematically algorithmic supply cut, and then the human response to that scarcity. And then the human response blowing the price up to some crazy level, which obviously stimulates selling. So Bitcoin is the apex coin. Whatever Bitcoin does, it will take the industry with it. No different than it did in 2018, no different than it did in 2022. So this is going to be, I think, an incredibly rewarding, but incredibly volatile and punishing place. Like you do not have like some stomach to withdraw. I mean, to deal with the swings is going to be brutal for anybody to hodl anything. I mean, we put Dogecoin at what, 72 cents, and it's 3 years later. Yeah, I mean, I'm bullish on Doge, but like, we're gonna have to wait 3 years for this. And we put Bitcoin in, with much better timing. But even then, in February, and the COVID crash took it in like a week and a half from 10 to 3,000. Yeah, this is not a place where, unless you have incredibly strong stomach for volatility, that I would like sort of like bet the house or plan, that be like, hey, it's gonna be a nice, easy, smooth ride. Yeah, no. Anthony Perry, always thank you so much, sir. Smash the like button, and subscribe as well, please. LMFG gives us the thumbs up. Liasim says there's a sample size of n is equal to 4 in your cycle analysis. Well, you know what? That's all we got. So, you're going to have to make do with this. So if you can, go out 100 years and come back in time and give us the perfect answer, I'd be completely open and willing to go with your answer. Since we only have, 2012, 16, 20, and we don't even have 2024, I can only use that. So, I can only do the best that I can. If one can predict cycles, why not give a subscriber sell signal? Well, I mean, we might. In 2020, I didn't know as much as I know now, and we still have to see what's going to unfold. Is all of my forecasting and whatever research going to turn out? If it hits $1 million, I would never going to sell all of our Bitcoin. I'm never going to sell all my Bitcoin ever, because if it goes to $1 million, it confirms, the cyclical theory that I have, which is that every 7 to 10 years, this adds an exponent. So if that's right, Fidelity has a research piece out that says in 2038, every Bitcoin is worth $1 billion. And if you kind of like run the math out, that's what it says. Sounds ridiculous, but truthfully, I mean, heck, I was like working on this live stream. I mean, do you want to see what Bitcoin traded at in 2016 prior to the halving? It was at $400. It's at 62,000. I mean, 62,000 is as preposterous as $1 million. I mean, who in their right mind would even imagine that from 2017, early 2017 to 7 years later, the Bitcoin has gone from a $400 or $500 asset to being worth $62,000. That sane, rational, sophisticated investors, BlackRock, MicroStrategy, major investors around the world are all happy to pay $62,000. So, hey, I'm happy to be dumb and take that long-term bet. You can trade as much as you want. I mean, I will, in our updates, I'll be like, hey, the cycle says this is the top. You can choose to do what you wish. I mean, but we will be like, hey, Bitcoin, we think, is one of these things that I certainly want to keep my Bitcoin as a permanent asset to some extent. I mean, obviously, I'm going to die. I'm probably, spend some of it on the way up. But yeah, you can trade it as much as you want. Why? You don't have to listen to me. I mean, you can listen to the updates, take the information, and make your own choice. Subscribers always want me to do things. And I was like, do it yourself. Like, hey, if you want to sell and your time frames are short, your time frames are different, your risk levels are different, you choose to take the information and do the best that you can that's appropriate and right for you. What is the sentiment of crypto by your measure reading Twitter? It seems that nearly every Twitter post is promoting crypto in the comments. Right, but this is like from people that are like crypto fanatics, right? The sentiment, go back and think to the sentiment in 2017. Go back and think what the sentiment was like near the high in 2021. That wasn't of like this small set of like, survivors and fanatics and maniacs, right? I mean, we're going to see people that are come in, right, because of the price increase. Those people are crazy, right? I mean, they will buy at $1 million and think it's going to go to 10, right? We don't have that right now. Why? Because, well, we haven't seen the kind of price bump to bring that group in, right? I mean, that group is essentially going to pay anything to get in because they're driven by, these psychological factors. I say, on the way up, it's fear, uncertainty, doubt, and yeah, that's in there. And somewhere near the top, it's greed, envy, and regret. I mean, those are the six cardinals of human behavior that affect financial markets. We're just not there yet. I mean, who's excited about Bitcoin at 62 after it was at 73? I mean, everybody's like, yeah, Paul, you've been saying this forever. Like, when will it happen? Oh, but they won't be saying that. Obviously, once it gets past 100 or 2 or 300, everybody now suddenly will be like, yeah, I wish I could turn back time and buy it at 62. So, I mean, that's the nature of financial markets. When you want to buy it, it's, significantly higher. And then this is why, trading in and out is so difficult, which is that you think you can time your way in and time your way out, but yet, markets don't wait for us. They won't give us a little schedule or an almanac and say, so tomorrow or next week, it'll go higher. I mean, the supply shock could start tomorrow. Could be starting right now. You just don't know. And the speed at which it moves means you might like, I'll do it next week. Once, I see what Paul's saying, I'll do that. I don't know. I mean, go back and look at 2017. I mean, it was not thinkable to me, a Bitcoin noob and skeptic in 2017, that Bitcoin could jump literally by $1,000 pretty much first every month and then pretty much every week. Yeah, I mean, it was $500. Yeah, I mean, it was under $500 in 2016, and then it's jumping by $1,000 every week. And then, like I said, the last jump was the last month was essentially like a straight line move from 10 to 20,000, a straight line move. Yeah. So, yeah, those folks who think that you can time the short term in and out, go for it. I mean, I think, as probably the world's single most important asset in my judgment, I'll definitely sell. I mean, look, if I'm right and it goes to a million, I'm definitely, going to sell some of my crypto and definitely follow my own advice. And I say, sell on the way up and use it for the things in your life. I'm definitely going to follow that. I'll pay off my houses, any debt that I have, and store up fiat USD that, is losing value every day because of inflation, and keep it for all my spending. But the vast majority of my Bitcoin, I'm not planning to do anything with it. Yeah, So what's the problem about mining stocks? Well, I mean, I explained like if you're a miner, right, and on April 18th, which is the day before the halving, or until the last block was mined, if you were making 100 million after April 19th, the halving, you're now making 50 million. Now, I mean, which means you're losing money, right? I mean, just suddenly, instantly. So as a miner, what can you do? Which is you still have to pay, you got to pay for all your mining rigs. Your expense hasn't changed, but your reward, what you make, has changed. So miners, the bigger miners might have hodled some amount of Bitcoin to sell to pay for their expenses. Some may have raised cash or conserved cash, so they have it for the post-halving period. Others, as I said, be like, okay, we're too weak. Investors won't give us new money. They go to a bigger company and say, hey, well, we've got whatever, 10,000 rigs and we've got operations here, blah, 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 buy us. And some go out of business. And so, I mean, at halving, Bitcoin was approximately where it is right now. So the miners have not been making any money for essentially 6-7 months. The cost of Bitcoin is, I like to track it on a regular basis. And let me show this. The price of Bitcoin, as you can see here, Bitcoin You see on the right-hand side here, Bitcoin average mining cost is 72,694. So at the present time, miners are losing about what? $10,000 per Bitcoin. So we got to make that up. I mean, or where, how? You got to, so if you imagine that, like, I mean, what makes people come and bid mining, stocks up? Obviously, if Bitcoin is jumping, it does that. But then more sophisticated investors, well, they go look at the company's financials, right? So if Bitcoin is going up and they're mining more Bitcoin, then they're starting to make more money. But at current prices, they're losing money. So yeah, I mean, the market's not excited to own Bitcoin miners, except for folks who have, a slightly longer term time frame. They are probably, buying in at cheaper prices if they believe, what I have laid out, which is that Bitcoin is going significantly higher. And so probably starting in about a month, Bitcoin miners are suddenly going to be like, oh yeah, I mean, let's just, run a scenario. And, let's say by is October 8th. Let's say by, I put myself out there. Okay, let's say by November 30th, maybe first week of December, Bitcoin's at 100. Do you think people want to own miners? You bet. Yeah, you bet. Why? Well, because the average mining cost won't have changed, but the profitability equation will have changed. And now they're certainly earning whatever, $25,000 per Bitcoin, and they're suddenly flush. And now with the price driving demand driving price, Bitcoin goes to 100, then 130, 150, and 200. I mean, their costs are not going to change that much. So now they're making $100,000, $150,000 per Bitcoin. And so now everybody wants to own the miners. So that's the cycle of like sort of mining that's there. So if you want a leveraged play on Bitcoin and crypto, and if you buy into what I'm saying, well, the miners are a good trade here. I mean, I'd be buying it, and the miners tend to anticipate the top, so it's a good year run. I mean, a huge run. If you go back to the 2021 halving, the miners did better than Bitcoin because they're levered plays. So that's the scenario with the miners. All right. No more comments or questions that I can see. So thanks all for attending this live stream. Things are going well, but they're going to go better. A big part of our bet at ATG Digital Portfolios is in crypto, fintech, and that is imminent. That's imminent. I mean, obviously, I can't guarantee it. The future is always uncertain, but all the evidence, all the research, all the facts, everything that I've worked on says this is coming, and it's going to take, all of that with it. That's easily probably 35% of our portfolios between crypto and fintech. And then we see other parts of our portfolio, slowly starting to percolate higher. I mean, the vast majority of companies have not hit a new 52-week high or a new all-time low. Obviously, we had a number of losers. We've cleared them out. The survivors here, I mean, these are genuine companies. And with this transition market for the stock market unfolding, they have growth. And the investors are clearly coming and they are looking and they are selling out of these big mega cap stocks, especially the big tech stocks, and they're searching out growth, and they're coming and they are just slowly percolating out. This year will be a bunch. Next year will be more. The year after will be more. Why? Because, well, the big companies just don't have growth, just do not have growth. All right, everyone. Oh, what is up with MSTR? I mean, it's up, so I don't know. It's almost at its all-time high. It's a leverage play on Bitcoin. So I don't know what your question is. Um, so if you can elaborate, I can answer. Hey, Paul, long time no sending messages. Hope you're well. Question on EVgo and MNKD. What is my take? Also, ASTS. I am not a bull on ASTS. That to me is a hype pump stock, in my opinion. Again, cyclical stocks, stocks that require huge capital spends, like putting up 1,000 satellites. Yeah, I mean, the vast majority of satellite companies that I have ever followed in my career went bankrupt. SpaceX might be one of the very, very few that didn't. So I am not a bull on ASTS. I know that stock is pumped, and I know there's a huge story on that, but I'm not a bull on ASTS. I'm not telling you to sell, but that's my view of the company and looking at the price pattern. That has clearly been moved higher. There's a lot of excitement there. Generally from a very retail-oriented crowd. I think you'll find that the vast majority of institutional investors are, if they're in it, probably are looking to get out, because remember, they have to sell vast amounts. They're not going to wait around for the highest high, right? I mean, you need to sell 100 million, 200 million, etc. You go when the liquidity is available, not necessarily at the highest price. All right, but going back to the other stocks, EVgo. EVgo just had a piece of news saying that they got a loan from, I think, the Department of Energy. I mean, essentially, this move up that came, like, I think it was like a 40, 50% move in a day, is effectively really the market pricing the company now as if it will no longer probably go bankrupt. I mean, I think for some period of time in 2022 and 2023, yeah, like many of its peers, I mean, Blink and ChargePoint. I mean, these are companies that came public at very high prices, but the business model is long, right? I mean, and capital, they need money to go put these things in. The initial installs are expensive, and then these are long-lived assets that produce cash flow over time. So they got a large loan, which kind of like solves their like medium-term financial like needs. So the market is like, okay, boom, 50% higher. So, I mean, that's what's going on with EVgo. I mean, and if you read what they had to say, they're like, it's not like, tomorrow they can put up, 25,000, chargers. I mean, this is going to be a rollout over multiple years. So, I mean, the stock is probably going to see some profit taking. And then as the rollout unfolds, then it will start to become clear what their rate of recurring cash flow is going to be in 2025, 2026. People start to capitalize that into the stock. I'm still bullish on EVgo, but it's not going to do what it did last week. Every single week or month from here, that was like the market being like, okay, the liquidity like issue and profile for this company is now gone. No one like that that's that jump. MNKD is a stock that, as you know, we've been very bullish on. I made it, I think, I make it the stock of the year. Yeah, I think I did. I think it's up 50, 60% for this year. They have a major event coming in the fourth quarter, which is that they have a trial testing Afrezza in kids, so pediatric insulin. And the company has put out in their presentation says that I can't remember, was it 1% or every 10% of this market would be worth about 150 million to them. So that would be pretty big, and that would be something that sort of like, I mean, start to happen pretty quickly. I don't think it will take 5 years for them to get significant sort of like inroads into that market. Why? Well, I mean, I think like, a lot of kids, if you give them the choice between having to inject themselves versus teaching them how to inhale something, are probably going to be pretty happy about this. So that 150 million, investors will start to price that in starting fairly quickly. So like, they'll say, oh, maybe it takes, 2 years for that to happen. But remember, investors look forward, by a minimum of 12 months. And when they have very high confidence, they will look forward by as much as 2 or 3 years. So Afrezza has been on the market for 10 years. So its safety is not in question. This is a study really essentially like kind of like to dot the I and cross the T. And then it's just going to be a commercial rollout. Meanwhile, there are other drug that's producing what, a couple hundred, $200-300 million in royalty revenue is just continuing to snowball. So yeah, I mean, you just got to sit in it and wait for things to unfold. Short squeeze, I don't know for what. I don't know if you're talking about MSTR or if you're talking about ASTS. ASTS, I think, is partly a short squeeze. Rashad says, would I buy Tesla before robotaxi event? Well, I mean, one of the most known phenomenon in financial markets is buy on the rumor, sell on the news. So it's very interesting. Like if you put, let's see, can I get a Tesla chart up? We really haven't seen, much of a buy the rumor like move in Tesla, because I mean, there's been so many different pieces of news on Tesla: deliveries, Cybertruck, China sales. And I wrote a Substack yesterday on the robotaxi event, and in it I quoted what Elon said in his book, in the Walter Isaacson book, and it's worth putting this up here, right? And he's talking about robotaxis. He said, this will be a historically mega revolutionary product. This is the product that makes Tesla into a $10 trillion company. People will talk about this moment in 100 years. Now, if you're doing a one-day trade, you're buying call options, listen, that's a coin flip, right? I mean, it's hard to gauge the state of the market right now. So, I mean, you're going to go for it. You can. It doesn't look like, from what I can tell, it doesn't look like there's a lot of excitement priced into Tesla stock for the robotaxi event. That's my view. So, I mean, we have a levered option trade in the platinum options for Tesla, partly on this basis. So we're betting that, there's nothing in there. And so, MNTS stock, would you give us more information? MNTS is a stock that is either going to go bankrupt and or delisted, this year, or else the Department of Defense is going to keep feeding them some number of contracts to keep them alive. This is a struggling stock, has a market capitalization of 6 million. It's obviously, very risky. They have a theoretically and potential, revolutionary technology in this water-based space engine. But, they're a $6 million company, and they've got about $1 million in cash. They just got a notice from NASDAQ saying that they might be delisted. And while I've committed to holding it in the silver tier, come hell or high water, certainly if it's delisted, we'll sell. Because at that point, it's just going to go illiquid and it's going to disappear. So it's in, a terrible spot. But it's not strange or unusual for these early stage technology companies with a potential revolutionary technology to be too early for their time, to not have enough money, not have enough time to get to the finish line. And then maybe it's 5-7 years from now for somebody to get there. Tom says, Oris, I appreciate your insights. I think it's more, people only talk about Elon's politics, but everybody has politics. I don't know why Elon has to be singled out. I mean, Elon's a human being. He's entitled to his politics. You can agree, you can disagree. It's a free country. There's no requirement for everybody to, to think the same thing, do the same thing. That's the beauty of the United States. So you can think that, but there's no sign of any of this. Model Y sales are pretty much, they're like within like in like a smidge of being the best-selling car in the United States. So the evidence and facts says otherwise. MNTS to the moon, bro. I can only hope. I can only hope. I mean, I know a lot of folks own it. I own some of those warrants. They're pretty much near zero. It would be fantastic if it happened, but I'd have to say the chances and likelihood is pretty low. All right. We have successfully crossed the 1 hour mark, which is a good time for us to end the live stream. Thanks all for attending the live stream. Come back again next week. Well, we'll do another one. Tell folks if they don't know. I'm always happy to take questions. Thanks for attending. And we'll see you next week. This is Paul saying bye.